Bernhard Steiner. Germany as a problem. The main driving force behind U.S. foreign policy. George Friedman, American, USA, political scientist, publicist and director of the think tank Stratfor, has for the first time publicly revealed what the United States fears most. Stratfor is an American, U.S., organization founded in 1996 that deals with geostrategic issues and advises the U.S. administration, among others. The founder of Stratfor, George Friedman, spoke at a meeting of the Chicago Council of Foreign Affairs on the objectives of U.S. foreign policy on the occasion of the launch of his new book Flashpoints, The Emerging Crisis in Europe, where he spoke with surprising frankness. It is worth paying attention to his words and examining them more closely, especially in the light of the current conflict in Ukraine. 2. George Friedman explained that the main interest of American, U.S., foreign policy over the past century, in the First and Second World Wars and during the Cold War, has been the relationship between Russia and Germany. If these two countries can join forces, the only power that can pose a real threat to the United States can emerge. As Friedman put it, the age-old fear of the United States is that German industrial capital and German technology would merge with Russian raw materials and Russian labor, a unique alliance that the United States has been deathly afraid of for centuries. And it will do everything in its power to ensure that this does not happen. Friedman also made references to the means by which U.S. policy is trying to prevent this alliance from coming into being. I would suggest the policy that Ronald Reagan used in the Iraq-Iran War, 1980 to 1988, supporting both belligerents in the war so that they fought against each other, not against us. At the time, the Americans provided satellite images of enemy positions to both sides. 3. Friedman was thus articulating a key strategic principle of U.S. foreign policy, to ensure that rival states or parties everywhere are pitted against each other, and then just pitted against each other to fight each other off. Friedman also said that Europe itself is not united. The Baltic, the Poles, the Hungarians, the Ukrainians, the Romanians and the Bulgarians are different from the Germans, and they are different from the Spanish. Through the countries just listed, the United States wants to create a security zone around Russia. For Russia, Ukraine is a vital issue, and for the U.S., it is a purely geostrategic one. If we look at recent developments in history in the light of the forecasts and analyses of the Stratfor think tank, certain things become clearer to us. On December 13, 2013, U.S. Secretary of State Victoria Nuland stated at a meeting of the U.S.-funded Ukraine Foundation that the U.S. government has contributed some $5 billion to prosperity and to democracy in Ukraine since 1991. 4. After the fall of the, democratically, elected Ukrainian government, Nuland intervened by nominating Arseniy Yatsenyuk, one of the U.S. proxies for Ukraine, as Prime Minister, while making no secret of her views on the European Union. Fuck the EU. Fuck the EU. It is also clear that the delivery of lethal weapons to Ukraine, some openly, some covertly, is intended to further fuel the conflict and provoke the Russians, hoping that they will lose their heads. George Friedman summed up his speech by saying, "Unfortunately, the Germans have not yet made up their minds. And that has always been Germany's main problem. It is economically very strong but geopolitically very fragile. And it never knows how to reconcile these two factors. This has been the German question since 1871, since the creation of the German unitary state, and it is also the question for the whole of Europe. Think about it, because this question is coming up again. Today we are again confronted with the German question and we have to deal with it, but we do not know how. It's rare to hear such frank talk about U.S. foreign policy objectives from across the Atlantic. Indirectly, George Friedman's speech is an appeal to Germany to decide whether it wants to find its own middle way and shape its own relations as an independent, self-determining country, or remain a loyal follower. In the meantime, there are encouraging signs, such as the Minsk